is horruit alcione. So horruit means trembled. So Alcyone trembled. And que, she emisit. So this is the perfect tense from emito, to emit or to let something out, literally to send out. So she let out the lacrimas, the tears. And the lacrimas are described with the participle ob ortas. Now, ob orior means to rise up, or with tears, to well up, we would say in English. And this is a deponent verb, so the participle, the perfect participle, looks passive, but it has an active meaning. So literally, ob ortas lacrimas means the having welled up tears. So you could say she let out the tears that had welled up. And que, she dedit amplexus, she gave embraces. Miserrima, that means sort of being very sad, gave embraces very sadly. And then we have tandem, so she gave embraces very sadly, and in fact que before that, so and at last tandem. She said, dixit, she said, vale, farewell, tristi ora, literally with a sad mouth, but in English we would say with a sad voice. And, that's que, she fell down, con lapsa est. So con labor is, again, a deponent verb meaning to fall down. Here we have the perfect tense. Again, it looks passive, con lapsa est, but it's deponent, so it's actually active. And also notice how the two parts of the verb, con lapsa and est, can actually be separated. Right? You've got corpore toto in between them, but it is one verb. So she literally collapsed or fell down, corpore toto, with her whole body. So that's ablative, corpore toto. Then ast. Now ast means but. It's just like the word at, or even the word said. Okay, but the juvenes, the young men. And then we have an ablative absolute, ceice quaerente, so literally with Ceyx, seeking delays, moras. And in English we might say, although Ceyx was seeking delays. The young men reducunt, which means they lead back, they draw back the remos, the oars, ad fortia pectora, to or towards their strong breasts, fortia pectora, in geminis ordinibus, in twin rows. Right? Gemini, like Gemini, means twin or double, and ordinibus, ordines are rows. So you've got two rows of young men, right, one on each side of the boat. That's the point. So they draw back the oars towards their strong breasts in twin rows. And que, they scindunt, literally they cut the freta, the waters, with, and here's our ablative, aequali ictu, with equal stroke. Right, so they're all rowing in the same kind of rhythm as each other. And then we have illa, change of subject. She sustulit, right? Tollo tollere sustuli in the perfect, sublatum, and it means to raise. So she raised her umentes oculos, her wet eyes, right? Wet because she's been crying, and que, and then here, the main verb, we actually have to go 2 lines down. So prima videt, she first, or you can say at first, she sees, and the object is maritum, her husband. Okay, and the husband is described with 2 participles, stantem and dantem. So stantem means standing, so she sees her husband standing in pupe recurva, on the curved stern. So recurva means curved, and pupe is the stern of the ship, standing on the curved stern. And then we have an ablative absolute, concussa manu, literally with his hand having been waved. In other words, waving his hand to her. And he's also described as dantem, giving signa, signals, to her, sibi. Remember, sibi is that reflexive pronoun that refers back to the subject, which is the wife. Okay, so I'll just go over that bit again. So at first, prima, she sees, or she first sees, her husband, maritum, stantem in pupe recurva, standing on the curved stern, with his hand having been waved, manu concussa, giving signals, dantem signa, to her, sibi, and que she gives back, reddit, she gives back, she returns the notas, the signs, or the signals. So in other words, he is waving to her, and she is waving now back to him. Okay, and then we go to ubi, which means when. So when the land, recessit, receded, sort of moved away further, longius. Now, of course, the land isn't moving, it's obviously the ship that's moving, but from his point of view, the land is receding, the land is moving further away. And atque, and when her oculi, her eyes, are not able, nequeunt, nequeo means I am not able, it's like non possum, her eyes are not able to cognoscere, to recognize his vultus, his face. So they almost can no longer see each other. Dum licet, while it is possible, she insequitur, she follows the fugientem pinum. Now that literally means the fleeing pine. But I think in this case, pinum means something made of pine wood, and therefore it refers to the ship. So she follows the fleeing ship, lumine, ablative. That means with her lumen. Now, lumen normally means light, but it can also mean an eye. So she follows the fleeing ship with her eye. So as long as it's possible to see the ship, she's watching it, basically. And when, so ut here, remember ut plus indicative just means when. So when this also, haec quoque, this being the ship, when this also was not able, haud poterat, haud is like a stronger version of known, was not able to be seen, videri, present passive infinitive from videre, to see, when this also was not able to be seen, having been removed, sub mota, ppp, having been removed by distance, spatio, ablative. In other words, because there's so much distance between her and the ship, she can't see it anymore. Tamen, which means however, or in this case, nonetheless, she watches, spectat, the sails, the vela. So in other words, the pinum, the pine, the wooden ship itself she can't see anymore, so she's just watching the sails, which she can still see. She watches the sails, fluitantia, so that's a participle agreeing with vela, and it means fluttering. She watches the sails fluttering sumo malo, and that's ablative, on the top of the mast, the malum. So she watches the sails fluttering on the top of the mast. And when, ut, plus indicative, when nec videt, she doesn't see or cannot see the vela, the sails, she anxia, being anxious or anxiously, petit, seeks or looks for her vacuum lectum, her empty bed, and que she say ponit, she puts herself, say ponit, puts herself on the bed, toro.